Welcome back to Trampled Underfoot Podcast. This is trampledunderfootpodcast.com, Trampled Underfoot Podcast on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Spreaker, and the like. What in the world is happening here, Mark? You're wearing a face mask online.
Yes, I am. And I know my voice is kind of muffled. For those of you on the audio podcast, I apologize for this, but I have a reason for doing this. This is safe talk. I'm going to do something that I've never done on this podcast before. I'm going to get dangerously close to being political. But this is safe talk, so nothing I say, no poison or venom that should leave my mouth will hurt you or affect you. So we're okay. But I gotta do a little bit of a backstory before I get into the story and the reason I'm wearing this. And that is that my wife, Linda, last November had knee replacement surgery. So this whole COVID thing, it closed down her physical therapy. And so she's about 5 months behind in physical therapy. So we have this little system when it's time for her to go to physical therapy. I take her, drop her off, make sure she's in and everything's fine. Then I go to the grocery store. And that's where this comes in. So I don't know if you want to get into this right now or you want to spend a little time talking or...
No, I don't want to spend. I want to hear what the heck you have to say.
You want to hear what's going on? I've been teasing him with this for a week because this happened last Wednesday.
Or we could just put that to the side after so much expectation and just talk about some frivolous thing. No.
Yeah, we could do that.
No. Go ahead and hit us with it because, I mean, we need to know.
Well, so I dropped her off, made sure she was checked in okay, and everything was great. And went down for an excursion to the wonderful world of Wally. And got in, got my stuff, what I could remember of my stuff, and got checked out and everything was great. Come walking out of the store. And you know how Walmart is. Most Walmarts have this little covered portico area where out by the road you have the big steel pipes filled with concrete to keep, grandma from driving the F-100 into the store. And then off to one side, there's the shopping carts and everything else. Well, I go walking out of that and I get out. I'm in the street heading through the parking lot. And I did what everybody else does in that situation. I reached up and took my mask off.
When you were out?
When I was outside of the store.
After being in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm done. I'm finished. And I'm holding it in my hand. In fact, it was this mask. And I'm pushing my shopping cart. And I'm about 4, maybe 5 cars away from our Jeep. And I'm just kind of humming along, doing whatever I was doing. And suddenly this woman comes out from between 2 cars, about 3 cars past ours. And she's walking towards me and I'm walking towards the Jeep. Well, she gets up to almost directly behind our Jeep. And she just stops and looks at me and says, "You're supposed to wear that mask until you get in your car." Well, I was kind of taken aback.
But did she say it gleefully and peacefully, or?
Oh no, like she was talking to a 5-year-old. She didn't yell, but she raised her voice.
She was authoritative.
Oh yes. Oh
okay.
yes.
And indignant slightly.
Oh, very indignant. And I was kind of taken aback, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly what I said, but
of course you were shocked.
Words to the effect of, and you're supposed to say keep a 6-foot social distance. So don't worry about it. And you're blocking my car.
Oh, you told her?
Yeah. And that was it for her. She didn't touch the cart, but she leaned forward. And then she yelled, "You're supposed to keep your mask on till you get in the car."
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I loved it too. Now, with as many years as I spent in and around the Army, I'm not proud of what I did, but the command voice came out. And what the command voice is you're not really so much yelling as you are projecting. throwing it out there so that when you're standing in front of 250 people, every one of them can hear you with no issue.
Mm-hmm.
And that kicked in. And I more or less hollered, and you're supposed to keep a 6-foot social distance. So I suggest you mind your own business and back off. And I took 2 steps forward. She couldn't get away from me fast enough. She backed up real quick and scurried around me. Now, with keeping the situational awareness, I kind of followed where she was going, and she ran up real quick to the guy up in front of the store, and then a lot of hand gesturing and pointing in my direction. I put my groceries in the car, put the cart in the corral, and off I went.
I love it.
That's part of it.
That's can we? Well,
yes, we can go ahead and discuss that if you'd like.
Because that's one part of it, right?
That's one part of it, yeah.
And because you have also your thought process.
Well,
okay,
yeah, I have a conclusion.
Of course you do. Of course you do. That's just it's so. There's so much there.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that. I don't.
No, go ahead. We'll do it after.
Okay.
But there's so much. I'm interjecting a moment just to say that there's so much wonderful. I mean, I'm getting goose pimples.
I think we may have found a better episode than Atom Smasher. Well, anyway, so I got in the car and I backed out and I pulled away, and that was it. I never saw her again. The guy didn't come running after me. None of that stuff. I don't know. But as I'm the other part of the routine is if I've got perishables in the car and I have enough time, I'll run them home and then come back and pick her up at physical therapy. So I look at the clock. I've got time. I decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go home, put some of this frozen stuff away. While I'm driving there, the news comes on, and I'm hearing all this about how Halloween is canceled. And now they're starting to talk about and make noises about Thanksgiving needs to be canceled. We can't be putting people in jeopardy. We can't be putting people at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So I was already burning up inside. So the let's cancel Thanksgiving and just stay home and have a movie night and or Halloween rather, and then let's also think about canceling Thanksgiving. And at least one state has already come up with regulations about how many people you can have in your own home for family get-togethers over the holidays and such. Mm-hmm. And it got me to thinking that on top of this sweet young thing coming up and getting in my face about what kind of a life do we really want to live? You know, what kind of life do we really want? Because let's face it, human beings have coexisted with viruses since either of them was created. I mean, forever. Now, this is a special case, yes. But
not any more special than all the other ones, though.
Well, it does spread easily, and it is fatal.
The bubonic plague, man, that was freaking savage.
You're absolutely right. But we have been able to treat bacterial infections, viruses. We've never cured a virus, not one.
Right.
You know, the only way to kill the virus is to kill the host, and nobody's advocating that. But it got me to thinking about how much of a life is it really if you are stuck basically in your home? They're saying have virtual Thanksgivings. Well, you know, that just ain't quite the same, is it? And so basically what that finally did was it led me to the conclusion that Mark just ain't going to play anymore. I'm just, I'm not going to do it. No, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the talking heads trying to whip people into a panic over something that may or may not ever affect them. It may or may not ever touch them. I'm not saying be stupid. I'm not saying don't take precautions. And yes, if a store has a policy that requires me to put a mask on, I'll wear it. It's their private property. If a company or a city building or a county building or something requires me to put on a mask to go into that building, I have two choices. I can either not go in, or I can put on a mask and go do my business and be done with it. I have no problem with that. I totally respect it.
Yeah.
But when people start getting in one another's face and making demands, that's where I draw the line. And to me, and I speak only for myself, that woman I had that run-in with in Walmart's parking lot is no different than these talking heads on TV telling me not to do this and to stay home and do that and not do the other. And I'm just going to say officially, for me, I don't speak for my wife. I don't speak for any other member of my family. For me, they can all just pound sand. I don't want to hear them, and I'm not going to listen to them.
I love the aggressive. I love how you so the pound sand. I love because you have to, because we're doing it on air. But the pound sand is such a decent way. Like, of all the evils of the world that you can bestow upon, like, right, launch an attack on people, you said they can just go pound sand. Like, over here, we'd have a few choice words to.
Oh, yes, we do have a few choice words, and I'll admit the choice word, but when I use it, I mean all the way off. Okay.
Yeah.
So. Forget it. I'm tired of listening to talking heads. I'm tired of listening to the people who are just out there to gin up fear and cause panic.
Yeah.
We have lived with viruses on this planet for all of our existence. Yes, it is going to kill people. Nobody can stop that. Nobody. Best they can do is come up with a vaccine. We've had flu vaccines for how long? We still have waves of the flu coming through. And yes, people die. I guess it's kind of a strange balance here, because no, I believe in taking precautions. No, I'm not out to infect my family or anything like that. But we understand the risk of my wife and I going to my daughter's house today. What difference does it make if it's today or Thanksgiving Day a month away?
Yeah.
So for the state to come down and start saying, well, you can't do this and you can't do that for Thanksgiving, pound sand. Pound sand. Tell me the difference between that day in November and today. You're not telling me I can't go over there now, but you want to tell me I can't go over there then? No, forget it. I'm not listening to you. No. Peaceful defiance, civil disobedience. That's it. I'm done. I'm finished playing with them.
Well, take that attitude that you have, that you've just played for us right now, and just place that in my case, across the board with everything possible, any scenario possible just about that you can think of. And then you and I are actually perfectly aligned with the universe and the constellations. However,
scary thought,
right? Add that attitude, sort of angle, this and that, and place it on just about every top. Because here's the thing. This is what I think of when you said that. I think of a lot of things.
Me too.
A lot, and there's so many things that are just sitting there. Well, go ahead.
But what makes this difference is the fear and the panic that they are invested in ginning up. I mean, you can't turn on the local or the national news without one of the lead stories talking about how the coronavirus, this many people have died and this many people have this, that, and the other. And it is news. It is important. Don't get me wrong. But what it does is it feeds fear into people. And that's what they're counting on. They're counting on you and I to be panicked enough to where we won't leave the house. Because it's another way they can control it. They can control us.
So there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot to it. And I'm not talking about anybody of any authority. I'm talking about the press in specific. I mean the press. See, they had a nice little rice bowl before cable came along, in that you had the three networks. And they were all basically the same. You could interchange the faces on the three networks because you basically got all the same stories. But then suddenly their influence died when cable came along and people found alternate choices. And then even cable news has become weakened by the internet, because now you can check out several sources. You don't have to listen to the information they process through their filter. They don't like that. So they have to have something to keep you coming back. I'm not saying they're lying. I don't think they are. But the presentation is there to whip you into a frenzy and cause people to panic.
Okay, so there's a lot there. A lot there. So it's going to be hard to even, but I guess we'll go through it and see what happens. On a very decent level of thinking in a positive, without the maliciousness coming into the thing, at a very decent sort of like cooperative, and we're all here just, trying to, get along and push on and keep on trucking and so on. I could say, and by the way, this is not my actual belief, but I can ponder it. And it is true to a point. I could say that human beings in the category of whatever, it could be in between you and I, person to person, in a group, at a workplace, store, or the news, or the government, people can really only focus on one particular thing at a time. I mean, the whole thing about, like, a lot of people will come out and say, "Oh, I'm a multitasker," and this and that, and I guess they could say that, and I can get that you can be, like, let's say, with a shovel and at the same time on the phone and at the same time you're cooking hot dogs, and call it multitasking. I was about to say multitasking. I don't know where my Jamie Page came on, but I got my multitasking. So I know you could say, but in reality, and I don't care. I mean, yes, you could push two buttons at the same time, while wagging your tongue, or whatever. But in reality, and the more complicated a task becomes, the more limited to other distractions you can be. So something like the press, they can only dish out like a story, and if they're of a single mind wanting to get out a single point, they're going to focus on that single point within the topic and disregard. And the more dishonest, if you have the persuasion of being slightly to one side or the other, then that can also influence your writing, teleseries, or whatever. So just to finish off that idea, to see what you say. So in a way, one issue is that if somebody, a newspaper, a TV newscast, or whatever, they're projecting one story, one idea with one. There's always all these factors, and I'm saying on the good side, thinking, but benevolent. They're doing the one thing, and then when we receive that information, we say, "Oh wait, but how about this?" And then it goes round and round. But go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say was it doesn't even involve dishonesty, because they can present the absolute facts. Okay? If the blue team is playing against the red team and the blue team wins, they can say the red team came in second and the blue team came in one place from last. It's the truth. The blue team did come in second. And I got them backwards. The red team did come in second, and the blue team did come in second to last.
Right.
So it's factual. It's all on how you present it. That's the point that I'm getting at, because there are tons of stories that have happened every single day.
But
But
can you acknowledge or disagree or either way, however you do with my analogy? Just because I'm
well,
curious.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with the major portion of it. But that's why I kind of went back and looked at that part about dishonesty. It's not necessarily dishonesty; it's their agenda. They have an agenda to project. Now, they're going to give you the facts as they see them, but they're going to present them in such a way that their agenda looks like the correct way to go, and their spin on it looks right. And 100% of the facts they present may be true, but are they all of the facts, or are they cherry picking?
Well, when we come to news, there's so much there to it's apparent that, like any other, and these are people, that organizations that have long, decade after decade, maybe century in some in many cases, of a position in our culture, and it is very likely and reasonable, and we see it, or at least we think it, I think it, that on a sliding scale, the majority of the public, and it's always, and I always mention, it's always the other people that are malinformed. Let me just say,
right.
And I say that like with tongue-in-cheek, sarcastically, because I always try to acknowledge, because one way of being fooled is by thinking that one is like the correct answer and has the correct everything on every that's one giant way of one fooling themselves and totally losing touch with fairness and balance. So I try consciously, but once I get rolling, like let's say we get rolling in a conversation, the more we roll, reason out the door if I'm focused on one, trying to get one idea stamped and approved by the next person. And this is human nature.
Sure.
But these papers and these news outlets, they do have the need to make money. And you do have, like you were mentioning, you were skirting the areas of politics. We do have a situation where influence and political and money is all in bed, above our pay grade, I might add.
Sure.
And that sliding scale, and they do want to influence using the news.
Well, sure they do.
Apparently, one way or the other. And by doing so, that sliding scale of people that I said the majority would just accept it. Well, there's a portion of the people, as has been seen throughout history, here and across the world, it's always a portion of people, and I dare not include myself in that because I'm not engaged in society the way others might be or one should be, but I am the observer from my vantage point. So I feel like including myself in that little sort of like broken off, that little section of people that are doubting everything. I think that's fair to say. Well, they're aware of the sliding scale, and they could give a crap about the people on the extremes of that sliding scale that are aware of the double, inconsistencies, whether they are to one extreme to the left or right, because both left and right, there's people on both sides of the spectrum.
Oh yeah,
quite aware of the bull that's spewed out, but regardless, the ends justify the means. So in conclusion about this thing, that middle population point is in flux, and these news people are trying to cater to that. And so the whole thing is a manipulation, political payoff, backhanded, dark alley sort of thing.
It's not even so much the payoff or the backhandedness. Again, and I've talked about this before.
But would you disqualify what I
No, I wouldn't disqualify it, because I'm not going to sit here and say that doesn't happen.
I mean, is it unreasonable?
What I'm going to say is that I studied journalism, and I interned at a newspaper. I was a copy boy. And I saw what happens behind the scenes. And I wanted to be a reporter. I wanted to be a reporter bad. And before I was a freshman in high school, I had completely eliminated that possibility of a career because I saw what went on behind the scenes. Everybody has an agenda. They have a way of thinking that they want to push. And I'll say it straight up. I don't care who your news source is. You are only hearing what they want to tell you. It goes through their filter. There is no such thing as objective reporting, even down to deciding what font and what size that font is shows a bias. So all I'm saying is, and I'll get to my conclusion. My conclusion is when we have people running up to us as individuals and confronting people in public with their opinions, whether it's that girl screaming at me that she thinks I should wear a mask until I get into my car, or it's somebody on a street corner screaming at you for whatever reason, we've gone too far. We as a society have gone too far. The talking heads on TV don't bother me as much because I can turn that off, change the channel, and, or whatever. I mean, I can shut the whole thing off, come in here and watch home renovation videos on YouTube, or put on some Led Zeppelin and just clear my brain. But when we are confronting people on the street, in public, total strangers, you do not know this person. You don't know their story. You don't know their life. You don't know what's going on. You don't know a thing. Everybody is entitled to their opinion, and everybody has a right to their opinion. But what you don't have the right to do is demand anybody else conform to it. So the conclusion basically I've come up with is shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Listen to me.
But there's so much to that. Let me know, and I'll
Don't listen to me. Listen to the person you're talking to. Listen to what's going on around you. Listen to other people. Because the minute you have made up your mind that you are right and you have proven how much of a fool you really are. Because none of us know. Nobody knows. Nobody in authority, nobody on TV, nobody on a sports field.
Can you qualify that in the context of?
We can have, in the context of just about anything. There are certain undeniable facts. Fire is hot, water is wet. Beyond that, it's the best guess we can give. You don't know. So what I'm getting at is you can have the opinion that I should wear my mask until I get into my car. That's fine. You can have that opinion, but you do not have the right to come up and demand I conform to it. So shut up and listen. Listen, because there are other stories out there. There are other people doing other things that don't involve you. I know it's hard to believe. They don't involve you. The world does not revolve around us. But relax, calm down, shut up and listen.
Okay, so I'm gonna input some a few.
Go ahead.
So the reason that I originally brought the multitasking slash multitasking is for the reasons I mentioned earlier, but I think that it applies all the way down the line. So if you take that one lady that approached you, that's the best out of all the possible, directions she could have moved in her day at that very moment. She chose confrontation and to boot in any reasonable mind, if the regulation is stay 6 feet apart, and the regulation is the mask, which by the way, the regulation is the mask indoors, not
In the
out.
store, yeah.
Right. Well, if she went above and beyond the call of duty of nobody called her for duty, except herself, to go and do that, what she is, in my opinion, without knowing her, without knowing where your Walmart is located, without knowing your city, town, principality, whatever, without knowing all that, just by the facts of the story, I would put money down at a Las Vegas casino with a blindfold on, and you got to be a bold mother trucker.
And you better wear a mask too, or you get kicked out.
And yeah, full regalia, full protection regalia. Well, so I would bet that lady is what we call projecting her life situation, her trauma, her worries, her everything on other people.
Well,
And well, let me just finish let me round it off so that so that's on the decent good side. She's reacting to all this stuff that you were mentioning. It's on the news perpetually, and she's freaking out. She sees you, and you're a violator. You are a wicked transgressor. And so she goes to correct the issue, because here's the key. It comes down to what I've always said, and I'm always going to, until I'm proven otherwise. In her mind, without knowing her, she knows. She doesn't really know, but in her mind, she knows that it's either one of two things: that you are a wicked, wicked person because you are breaking the regulations, or you're not smart enough, mind you, but she is, right? It's always, remember, here's the thing about everybody across the board on every freaking topic. They see it from their eyes, which you were mentioning.
Yeah.
And it's hard to understand that other people, maybe, more probably than not, actually you are not, I am not the be all end all of knowledge contained in the universe. Although it's easy to believe that because I'm the only one in my head processing all the information around me. But if you don't take a moment to say, wait a second, those are humans too, and they have like arms that articulate and a brain and this and that. So maybe, just maybe. So she assumed a lot out of you, and at the same time, she's traumatized and she's putting it out, projecting.
And you know what? Giving her the benefit of the doubt, that's quite possible. But my whole thing is, she was so hung up. And you're right. She has two choices. Either I don't know or I don't care. One of the two. But that the third possibility that she didn't even ponder, and that was, he's not wearing a mask. I need to stay away from him. That's what I mean when I say shut up and listen. We're eager to confront. But we don't want to. If she saw something that she didn't like and she felt compelled to go up and confront it, never mind the fact that in doing so, she got closer than 6 feet. So you can't have it both ways. My whole thing is, though, what business of hers is it? She had a choice to make. She could walk around me. And I mean, let me throw this tidbit in here. I don't think I mentioned it. I had the remote for the car out in my hand and hit the button. The taillights flashed when I unlocked it, and the rear hatch made a noise.
That is a very important point. Let me just interject this, because it indicates, let's say we're in the wild savannah observing lions. It indicates to any relative, fairly sort of observant individual that you were in the process of containing your virus within the capsule that is your car. So if she would have just waited a little bit, her worries would have been because at the same time, is she really gonna follow you home and make sure that you wear that mask while you're in the shower cooking food?
That's my entire point. It's none of her damn business. She's supposed to stay 6 feet away from me. So get that way. Carry your little tail 6 feet away from me and don't worry about it.
Let me add this.
Don't worry about it. Just go around. So what I'm getting at, she knew that was my vehicle.
Yeah.
But she was in the way. I'm trying to be polite. That's how Mom taught me. Be courteous to other people. But when she crossed that line, I wasn't courteous to her anymore. Get out of the way. And I took a couple of steps forward, and that caused her to kind of jar her loose a little bit, and she skedaddled out of the way. Then I opened up the Jeep and put my stuff away. But it's none of her business what I'm doing, what I'm going through. She doesn't know a thing about me. I'm not wearing a mask. She didn't like it. Stay away from me.
Maybe you were oxygen deprived and she doesn't know, but maybe you were at that moment, that moment, that the lesser of two evils, because having that and having the breathing in the same, exhaust, let's say, maybe you needed to, it's not. So look, that lady, I would have to, if I had to guess, is that I mentioned on the malevolent side, on the nasty side.
That's the vibe that I got, was the nasty side. I mean, when she's in your face screaming at you like you're a 5-year-old who doesn't understand what she's saying, lady, mind your own business and get away from me.
Well. Here's the thing about the sort of negative side of our psyche and of us. So there are actual conditions, and there's actual conditions out. There's a whole host of things and reasons why people do what they do. I would say a lot of people, and in fact, maybe most people, work at whatever degree, from a point of view of their self-interests. And within that, there's degrees of what they're willing and not willing to do to accomplish said goals. Some people fall on the extreme side of, I'll do that. And other people fall on the side of, I wish I could, but I won't do that. And other people fall on the side of, like, nope, I can't do that. Sure would like said item or said conclusion, but nope, that's that's where I draw the line. So there's all these levels of people. So on the malevolent side, there are actual psychological things. Like, there's actual people that are psychopathic.
Oh, sure.
There's actual people that, and psychopath doesn't need to mean axing people, but there's a disconnect. Now, I'm not saying this lady is that,
right,
but there's other conditions. There's other conditions, and these people are acting, in ways that aren't the rules that you follow. They will take something like that. Let's put it this way: control freaks. There are people that simply want to control your existence, and they think if you add that, they're like little Hitlers or little Napoleons. So let's say you get a little Napoleon complex person, because that does exist. I mean, I've encountered it a lot in my life.
Egotism, big time egotism.
You take that quality, that human quality, which is, when I say quality, I'm not using it in the positive. It's just a characteristic. And you put that with, the end goal, which is to control, which is what it is. These are selfish people.
Yes.
And they don't see beyond their scope. They probably don't have the capacity to. So there's also stupid. There's also the issue of stupid.
There's a host of reasons why she felt compelled she had to confront me on something like that. But my main point that I keep coming back with it was, who the hell does she think she is to tell anybody what to do? We have to stop the ego. We have to quit with that ego. You're not in a position of authority. It's none of your business what I'm doing here. Get away from me. Go about your day, and we'll both go home happy.
these people, and this is one example that you experienced out of, I mean, we've all
Oh yeah.
come across it.
Oh
But
yeah.
let me say
Several times.
let me say this bit. These people will never stop. They will never stop because these people, just like there's a yin and yang.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is my opinion based on millennia of, history where there's always a pull and tug in society on any number of issues across the board ad
Mm-hmm.
nauseum. There will always be these agents of provocation, these agents of
Right.
better angels, to some extent, these agents of all of the above, and these people are here kind of to stay,
Oh, I
because
know that. I know
people
that.
people want to control, and that's the beauty of what we kind of agree with at the end of the day, which is individualistic freedoms and,
Mm-hmm.
heck, the form of government that was laid out for us. I'm not going to say the
Right.
form of government. I'll say it
Well,
like this: the form of government we have, with people that have come into it, not all, that don't care much for those little specifics as long as they get to reach the goals that they.
sure.
So it's always a tug and pull, and we see it constantly. And those people are the people that make everybody's lives more difficult.
Oh yeah. And
Those people.
and and it's not really. I see. I don't have a problem with people in power. My happiness has never been decided by anybody in a position of authority over me. My happiness is within myself. My my life with my wife, my family life. That's my happiness right there. And those people have absolutely zero effect on it. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but I'm powerless to do anything about it really. But it's when we as individuals feel compelled to treat one another that way. And you're absolutely right. There are egotistical people everywhere. I mean, I can still recall a conversation I had with a gentleman a couple, 3, 4 years back about we'll take this back to the maker's world, a brand of table saw that everybody knows about. And I'm not going to mention any names because we're not endorsed, but they can call me. Um, reach out to us, guys. And they have a safety thing built into them to where if you touch the blade, a explosive cartridge goes off and it drops the blade so you can't cut yourself. Well, that's cool technology. And that's fine. That's great. But I had a bit of an argument with a guy who said that he thought it should be illegal for any table saw to be sold in the US that didn't have that feature.
Oh, geez.
And I told him he's nuts. Well, think of all the injuries that could prevent. Yeah, and think of all the injuries that could be prevented if they just banned them outright. Well, people have to work. Yes, people have to work. And that thing is a pain. If you are relying on a machine to keep you safe, you have no business turning it on. Just being able to open the box doesn't mean you know how to work the tool. But it was the attitude of, and I use that line on him too, you have the right to your opinion, but you do not have the right to demand anybody conform to it.
Let me say this. I believe that a lot of people, not everybody, there's a good amount of people. I don't know the numbers because, to be fair, but it appears like a certain contingency that's more than the lesser. They're on the higher end. Have forgotten or don't realize, to one degree or another, that across the board in society, the things that we daily interact with, use as products,
Mm-hmm.
everything you could imagine, from music to engineering marvels to business concepts that are successful, and technologies across the board, from medical, all that occurs through the individual interests of private people, individual
Mhm.
citizens, throughout time,
Right.
getting together with other people, making deals independent of any organization on a
Mhm.
grand scale, producing everything from, I don't know, the little motorized dust collector computer little gadget that runs around the floor to frickin' everything you could imagine.
Mhm.
Now, that point to me is key because if you put it all in the hands of one top tiered organized structure that tells you what you can, what you can't,
Right.
it
You
has
kill
shown
that.
you you kill innovation. But there's people that think erroneously, and by the way, just to be balanced, you can get X number of things done by using the top tier down method, all encompassing.
Mhm.
But at the number one, at the expense of lower productivity,
Mhm.
and at the expense of lower discoveries, new technologies, innovations, and so on, and at the pro side of a completely categorized, organized civilization. Um, so there is that benefit, but throughout history, that benefit by millions and millions of people have voted with their boots, their feet,
Mhm.
to exit said
Right.
structures because human beings
Right.
are a balance of all these things. We do want some structure, but we do not want a, a freaking, like, telescope in our window while we're taking a bath and scrubbing our toe jam. So this teeter tottering between these ends of the spectrum is what it's all about. We're always pushing forth, but there's a swath of civilization of people that want it controlled
Right.
because they see the benefit of it, but they don't see putting themselves in other people's shoes.
And,
And
well, they're the sheep. They're the followers. They're not the leaders. They've got the loud voices and they like to scream and pitch a fit, but they're the sheep. They're useful idiots. And they should recognize that phrase. They're useful idiots. The thing about what you're talking about is that type of micromanagement at that high up of a level. You're absolutely right. It kills innovation, it kills enterprise, but it also kills incentive. So the drop in productivity is because of a quota. And what that quota does is it gives you a number. You have to do 250. There is no incentive to do 255 or 260 or 280. So I'll do my 250 and I'll be good.
we have to do a balance of, or we don't have to do anything. That's my
Well,
there's no have to, but understanding that there's, so the way I look at it is that there's a need for both extremes and the in between. Um, and we don't want to give handover power to any extreme because any human
no,
being in a position of power, be it total lackadaisical freedom, or which I would lean towards,
I
because
wouldn't.
at the end of the day, I believe so. I would lean to the lackadaisical non-control of individuals, but the other side of structured, this coming together and arguing points and trying to sort of steer the ship, um, is what we have,
Well,
and we need these confrontations because um, I mean, it's the structure that we need these confrontations so that we can sort of like decide where the compass is pointing,
mm,
and sort of we need that. I mean, that's a
I'll
big
disagree with you.
speculation.
I'll disagree with you. We don't need the confrontation. What we need is for people to be civil to one another and cut the BS.
No, let me correct,
Okay.
or let me expand it.
Okay.
The connotation of confrontation is in the big scale of it. I'm not trying to say confrontation. We need to fight. It's not that we need to fight. I'm saying that ideas and ideologies need to exist,
Right.
even when they're opposite of each other.
I will agree with you there, because it's a check and balance to keep
Yes.
one from being more powerful than the other. And I agree
That's what I
with
was
you
saying.
there.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to say in a different way, but I'm glad that I explained it that
And
way.
I will agree with you 100%. But we're not seeing that now. We're seeing the checks and balances have started to fall apart. We have people demanding when they actually have no right to demand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have the right to demand a thing from anybody that I haven't paid for or earned. You don't either. Nobody out there. And I certainly don't have a right to demand something of you that I didn't pay for or earn. So that's what I'm getting at. And that's why I come back to that conclusion. Shut up and listen. You can't hear when you're talking. It's none of your business. That person has a story. That person has a life. You are just not that important in their life. They're doing something you don't like. If it's not hurting somebody else right then and there, if it's not damaging your property or someone else's property right then and there, mind your own business. She had a clear, defined choice that she could make. She could decide he's not wearing a mask and go around me. I mean, and because I'm right up against the cars, there was the entire driveway width and a whole line of cars across from, I don't know how far that is, 20 feet, 25 feet, something like that. There was plenty of room. It wasn't crowded. It's a small town. And this was 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, you know. It's a very small town. She had plenty of room. She could have just as easily gone around me and gave me a dirty look. Fine. That's perfectly within her rights to do that. And I'm perfectly within my rights to ignore her. But we have crossed that line. We've crossed the line of checks and balances, and we have people demanding something, and half of them don't even know what they want.
Okay, let me.
So I'm just saying, everybody calm down, relax, have some dip, and just shut up and listen to the other people.
Okay, let me say this. That it's crossed the line is valid to say. So there's no problem there. However, the crossing of the line, which is from talking or decently, these are lines that you share with many people, but you don't share with all people. And
Sure.
these other people don't share that line. And
Well,
I don't think that so like I know that these people will be around indefinitely because
yeah.
their concept of what's right is very different than what someone else, you in this example, would think that is right. And the goal of doing the least harm could be shared by both, but the tactics,
Well,
are they worth it?
it's even more than that, though, because we're perpetuating it, and we're encouraging it, and it's just in little subtle ways. See something, say something. Well, she saw something and she said it. I don't think she was expecting the pushback, because I got loud. In fact, I think I said, "Now get out of my way or I'll cough on you," or something like that. I don't remember, but she skedaddled out of the way.
I bet you it was a little. I bet you were a little bit more boisterous than.
Oh yeah,
than you're explaining
like
now.
I said, it's that I couldn't believe it. My mind was just blown. It's like, are you kidding me? Right here, right now? Who do you think you are? That's my problem with the whole thing. Who do you think you are? I'll give you style points for guts because you got a lot of them. But too bad you ain't got a brain in that head, or you'd notice to shut up, go around. It's none of your business.
The problem is a huge problem because there's no way of setting it up so that people with the different dispositions, philosophical dispositions, there's no way for one to really come to an agreement because there's a fundamental difference, and the fundamental. Well, dude, let me say that.
I'm listening. I'm just kind of
attention to your visuals.
Yeah, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth in my brain because I'm agreeing with some of it. But
the different. So let me just because I'm watching and I'm saying, oh wait, I'm saying bad things. Those I'm losing him. I'm losing him. Oh no, wait, I'm gaining him. Oh no, I'm losing him. I'm losing him. Like I'm trying to explain it so that the truth of it. Well, okay, so the dispositions are like oil and water at a very fundamental level. True. Because the fundamental, so that simple occurrence that happened to you, if you push the reeds, away, and make a clearing in the swamp, you're basically heading in one direction, in my view, which is the fundamentals of the issues of our time and throughout history, which is the issue of, do we have a king over us? Do we have control of our own destiny? What is our responsibility? What is the responsibility of the greater good for mankind? What is the lesser of two evils? What creates the best scenario for most people alive? And so all these things go funnel down into that question, and these are like ripples in society of that fundamental question, and I get that. And I am totally of the mind that we do need a balance. So currently, right, in a perfect world, so like for everybody in a perfect world, everything would run the way one would run, but if you stop and think, if everything ran the way you think it should run, and there's greater levels of that where like, oh no, that needs to run that way, and this stuff over here it's lesser of a problem, so that can go anarchy. So there's but in one's mind, it's always the way one would think that the world should be run would be the best darn thing in the world, but without anybody to check us on it, even if they're wrong, and by the way, who knows if it is that they're wrong or it's just but as long as they push up against you, and I'm not talking violently, like I would not prefer that. Obviously, we don't prefer violence, but that pushback allows for you to stop and say, what am I getting wrong here? Or am I transmitting my ideas wrong? Or so it's a good thing. But last part of this, that's on the level of like dialogue and this and that. But throughout history, there's the danger of the extremes of like total massacre of populations and so on, because of the idea of I'm right and this is better for all of you, so step in the gas chamber, as an example. Or I'm right, so step up to the guillotine. Or I'm right, so let me cut your head off and roll it down the pyramid over here in Mexico. So it's like that's a big.
But none of that entered into it. Not a single part of that entered into it. All that entered into it was she thought either I didn't know or I didn't care, and she was going to tip me off into her wisdom in the way she would scream at a 5-year-old. And I'm willing to bet you, I don't know if this woman has kids or not, but I'm willing to bet you that in the current climate, she didn't even talk to her kids the way she yelled at me. None of that enters into it. And I agree with you wholeheartedly on all of that you said, but none of that entered into it. She automatically thought she had the right to approach me on purpose and yell at me.
You don't see the correlation of what I'm saying completely directly towards
and that? I'm saying yes, you have oil and you have water. but there has to be a mix before they can react. And I don't know if I was water or if I was oil, but I was happy in my own little vessel doing my own little thing. She come up and decided she wanted to try to mix it up. I'm done. I'm not playing that game anymore. Pound sand. I'm done being civil.
Let me
I'm done.
address something that Billy said.
Okay.
So it's very difficult when people agree to do the devil's advocate thing. If all roads lead to Rome, point to Rome, if the information that you've calculated out and the experience that you have in life, by sheer, just life experiences and all that, point you in one direction, there's no possible way that you could reason out, or I could reason out, thinking any other way. Because, we're like, hey man, this is like the road. So granted, and I am always going to think by default, since I'm in my skin, that what I've concluded, what I've come to realize is the thing. And I think I'm right. Now, with that said, throughout history, to answer the statement that Billy, just because it made me think of something, you have current anarchist groups that are going through the streets, destroying buildings and so on and so forth, and hurting people. And these are unacceptable things. I mean, any reasonable person in our modern Western society that we are part of the continuation of, that our ancestors built, all of our ancestors built, little by little, through individual actions, we're seeing currently these agents of destruction and anarchy in order to get their way, like a tantrum, but with real life consequences to other people. So we see that. But isn't it true? This is to be devil's advocate with what Billy is saying. And I'm not questioning justification and truth and honor against an evil endeavor. I'm just saying, but isn't it also true, just in a blank slate, that this taking to the street activity, which is something that I do not agree with in the slightest, and I could go really further, but for the sake of that, we're in a podcast and this and that. But isn't it true that going back in history to things like, dare I say it, the American Revolution, agents, and mind you, let's move to the side justification and just but the actual activity of populations, pockets of populations rising, France, revolutionary France, and one could go on. Isn't it true that throughout history you also have these bursts of public, that are that go outside and beyond the structures that are currently in existence? Isn't it true that these things occur and that they revolt using tactics that a shop owner would not agree with during the 1700s? Because, hey, man, come on. Or a guy traveling from England here on a big ship, unloading tea. What does he know about the greater battle?
I see absolutely no equivalent at all.
Well, look, you're going to have to do, I would hope that you would do better than that after everything I just explained. Because my point is that throughout history, as a default of us, you have a structure that people agree upon with a government kingship. Uh-huh. And then you have...
That was the thing. That was the thing, though. They didn't agree with that. That was the whole point of the revolutions.
No, look, I think that I made it. So let me say it in a different way, because that's not the way. I would say that that's not the way to go with what you're, because my point is that throughout history we have a standard, be it kingships, be it a democratic government, be it constitutional republics, be it defunct republics
Right.
and anarchist, shoot 'em up gangster areas, dictatorships, and so on. So through the long lens of history, we have all these standards, not personal, or but like
I get it.
they
I
are
get it.
So throughout history, currently, we see uprisings. Do we see uprisings with the Church of Alien Abduction and Scientology?
Okay, but
Purification. Wait, let me just. What we see is this anarchistic thing, which I happen to not agree with by any stretch, because they're acting violently and they're hurting people, personal property, and people.
yeah,
And so
I get it.
But going to the past, is it not true? I was mentioning that we have actors, pockets within the standards of their time that have blown up out of the waters.
Yes, it's true. But again,
right,
they are not even close to being equivalent to what we're seeing now. What we're seeing now is civil unrest for the sake of civil unrest. They have no cause. They have no greater good. There is nothing that they want other than civil unrest.
Remember, I did not add to the equivalency. Remember, I did not, and I made that very poignant because I was aware of that.
I understand that.
Did not, but I did not put at the beginning the equivalency of saying that it's a justified. I didn't put the morality of it. I just said in the long run.
That's the point, Eloy. Neither do they. They have no moral equivalency on any of this stuff. They want civil unrest and destruction for the sake of civil unrest and destruction. And that's it. Their end game is to destroy. That's it. They don't want to build a better society. They don't want to right the wrongs that they see. They want to burn things down. And the higher authority they think they burn down, the happier and giddier they are.
See,
dude, I'm living it.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to within the look, I agree that it's crap.
But none of that has to do with this woman in the parking lot. She was a selfish individual who decided she had to interject and correct me. And I'm saying off.
At your situational level, on the person-to-person interaction, contained within that,
right?
It is what that is, and the points that you're making, and which I shared, the psychology of it. But in the greater thing, since just to broaden the horizons of current day and so on, I've brought in these different sort of angles to it. And it may not be that she's an anarchist, let's say, and this and that. So I'm not saying that.
Yeah, because they're not equal at all.
I'm not saying that. But if you remember, we were talking about ideologies, and there's a sliding scale, there's a gradient, and one could be hovering towards one side or the other. I mean, so within the context of this thing, we have a situation that's in flux with people landing at different levels of what line is it too far to cross. And all I'm saying is that throughout the long lens of history, since we ended up with this anarchistic situation, we do have the destruction, complete society destruction, of cities, of countries.
And I'm not denying that happened.
That people during those times would have looked at it like these people aren't out for fixing anything. From the rubble of those things that occurred, those destructions of those things, other civilizations coalesced and new things were formed. So all I'm saying is that, not that I agree with these people at all, but looking at it in that what they're doing is a function, regardless of strategy or outcome or sort of like a roadmap to what they want. Throughout history, the people in the Revolutionary War, initially, they knew what they wanted, but the consequences of uprising was a total ripping of a fabric that was in place for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and the outcome of what they wanted was never known, had never been known in history. So you have all these. Now, I'm not trying to justify what these people are doing, mind you.
It sounds to me like you are.
Right. It would. It would. But what I'm trying to say is that actors not minding the moral justification, not mind, just looking at it sterile, this type of activity of revolutions, of wild burnings, of all these things, regardless, putting aside justification and justice, and
okay,
these things occur throughout history, and they're going to be with us indefinitely because there's ideology lines that some people will cross and others will not, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying that I justify the thing.
Now, that's the point that you won't accept, is this is not an ideology. This is willful destruction for the purpose of willful destruction. That's it. It's not an ideology. It's pure raw emotion.
Right. If I'm using the word ideology, it's in addition to the lack there. It could be non-ideology. It could be space aliens attack. Just the activity of people rising up for whatever reason, and making a society crumble, or tugging at it to the point where these things have occurred, regardless of justification. These things have occurred throughout time. So we're not seeing something that,
and one of two things has stopped it. Either they have won or they have lost. What we're seeing right now is a third possibility, and that is tolerate it. If we be nice and ignore them, they'll go home. Well, they're not doing that. One of two things in the past has happened. They've either won or they've lost, and every damn one of them has been killed in one way or another.
Let me address Billy's thing, because he's saying,
and I'm getting and I am forever daily surprised that vigilante justice hasn't broke out in this country. Now, we've been hearing for nothing for the past however long that guns were the problem. And I think that this perpetual outrage of people in the streets, which, let's be honest, didn't accomplish anything, has never accomplished anything. All these people in the street screaming and hollering, I am forever shocked that the vigilantes haven't started coming out. I really am. And that's something that a lot of these folks need to remember, is the police are there to keep the vigilantes in check as well. They're to prevent the vigilante justice going out. So it wasn't all that long ago that I would not have been surprised to see the gunfire open up in some of these streets to get these bozos off of the street. Within my lifetime, I can remember stuff like that happening. And I am still to this day shocked that it hasn't happened yet on any large scale. There have been one or two incidents, but all it takes is one guy looking for a prom date to Valhalla or whatever to open fire, and people are going to die. Now, we're standing here worried about whether or not I'm wearing a mask when I come out of a store because somebody might get sick. Meanwhile, on a grander scale, somebody is going to definitely get killed if the craziness and the insanity and the fear and the panic doesn't stop. We all need to just stop. Okay,
so a couple of things, and then I want to address Billy what he said. So, and before I address this bit, I'll just leave this for Billy to say what exactly was insulting, and then I'm going to elaborate on the thing. But what exactly was insulting from what I said? But now,
remember, the audio folks can't see what he said, so you might want to.
Okay, so he says, as a son of the American Revolution, I find your argument insulting, Eloy. I love you, brother, but, and then the next line, I don't know that if it was the same thing, because if he's saying that, then that means he's ready to, he says, time to take the kid gloves off. But let's put that to the side. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, as far as um, actions taken to preserve life. And I think that politicians have mentioned that if you do not allow people to go on about their day, at this point, the damage that it does by suicide and by other things could outnumber the fact of people being isolated, and not allowed to do their thing. So so there's a pro and a con to
Right.
everything.
And I
we don't
understand
want
that.
people to die because of disease, so we
Right.
do want to be protective, but at the same time we don't want to be so protective that we end up killing people by default. And there's a whole host of things that occur, from economic destruction. I mean, there's a lot
Yeah.
a lot to that.
But but I and I don't claim to speak for Billy, but I think what I think
I don't
what
want you to jade the thing, but go
no,
ahead, because I want to hear what from him.
I'm not trying to jade it, but I mean, I can kind of see his point, because it did sound like you were equating what's going on, for instance, up the road from me in Portland here, to the American Revolution, and there is no equivalent as far as I can see. Yeah, there have been people who have tried to overthrow this government and that government, or out in the street marching and screaming and hooting and hollering, and yeah, there's been little pockets of revolution, but they all had a cause. They all had a reason to exist, and this has absolutely none. I mean, the American Revolution was fought to overthrow a tyranny, a non-representative form of government where we were constantly taxed and told what to do without any kind of say in any of that.
Right, and I know that, right?
And I know you know that,
So
but I'm trying to clear cut through the equivalency here, because there is none.
Right, I hate to say it, but I was assuming that, because it's a very direct statement that Billy said, and so I was assuming it was something within the region of what you're saying, or directly. So
yeah.
I was very explicit. See, here's the thing: the emperor has no clothes. Right. You disrobe, and what that means is that you have to look at things I am attempting to look at things in a very sterile way. You have to know, if you want to see a thing as best as you can for its truest, you have to look at things, even things that are not tasteful and this and that. But with that said, in other words, devil's advocate, looking at things from the long lens of history and so on. And it's not that one could be right or wrong. Maybe one is right in some points, one is wrong in some other points. Here's what I would say. I was very explicit, and luckily it's all captured on video. I was very explicit to explain within the capsule of time and the reason for what I was using. I was using the example. You have a timeline, and I said it already, all of it. So there's no need, and Billy would have to explain. There's a timeline throughout history, minus, I already said this, minus the moral and ethical nature, just on the level of uprisings. You have things all the way from the burning down of society at large now to people in Egypt uprising, let's say, the burning of the libraries in Alexandria and societies at large, uprisings in you don't wait no, because here's the thing: we do not want.
I can't make the separation. I can't take the moral aspect out of it.
Then I think it's not. It's let's put it this way. I think my point was way more benign, and that when I mentioned
I get it.
And when I mentioned the American Revolution, that is a trigger point. But you have to understand that I'm not looking at it in judgment by any stretch of the imagination, because I am preferential. Let me just say, I am quite preferential into the toppling of kings, and the establishment of republics, and in particular the establishment of our American republic, and in particular our Constitution and Bill of Rights, and in particular the elevation,
I'm with you.
and in particular well, let me say it, because this is a good point, and if there's one thing that I will defend, is my station when it comes to freedom, because if there's anyone that should know it more than the next guy, it would be me, because of the long history that I derive from.
Yeah, so, I'm with you. Believe me, I understand.
Let me put it on the record, because my point is something as a study. But I will make this statement for the long, I don't know where this will appear in history, but there is no bigger proponent. But the only purpose, I will say this, for the sake of it being American, I will not side with people just for the sake. It has to include freedom, individual freedom, a standard with our Constitution, a standard with our Bill of Rights, and the preservation of that. And then I call it American, truly in my line drawn. Anything that goes above that, it's a toss up. Oh, okay. The guy, walking into the store doing whatever. Those are, but that's my line. But what I was trying to say, and I'm going to wrap it up, this part, because I'm very passionate about that too. I wasn't trying to insinuate an association on the level of morality. I was insinuating very clearly that human nature has pockets of uprisings, not adding moral justification within structural hierarchies, societies, and that one moment you have one thing and you turn the corner and you have something else, and that we see it through the long lens of history outside of the structures that have been built. That's the only reason, now the fact that I mentioned the revolution is a sensitive topic, but I'm sorry.
See,
I will say this on top of the mountain, that to me, there's no greater thing than the belief in our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our individual freedoms to do what the heck we want.
And nobody is questioning that. All I'm saying is I can't make that moral separation. I can't do it.
Right. Okay. So that's fine.
I can't make that. I can't step back and look at it and say, well, the revolution that brought in, what was his name down in Venezuela? That's on par. What was his name?
Bolivar?
No. Their communist, their socialist leader, the one that died not too long ago here. Started with
Chavez?
Yes, Hugo Chavez. The revolution that brought Hugo Chavez to power, I can't morally equate that with the American Revolution.
But I'm not asking you to.
I know you're not. I know you're not. I can't equate the revolution that brought Castro into power with the American Revolution. Yes, they were both revolutions.
That's all I'm saying.
Morally, I can't justify that.
Right. And
I will not call a bunch of kids, and I'll say it again, and I hope they hear me, kids, useful idiots, burning down buildings in Portland. I will not equate them with even Chavez or Castro, because they don't have a goal other than destroy. That's it. That's their goal. Burn it down and move to the next one.
I'll tell you this much.
I can't separate it.
I get you. So
I know you didn't.
The tough part here with Billy and yourself, and maybe many others, is the mention or the inclusion within that to this very sort. So how could I, by any stretch, in any way, be? I'm not being pro or associating the morality of it. We've gone through that, so we know.
Right.
But it's such a shocking thing that's occurring in society today, that you will get the reactions. But I do want to make the statement that I'm not associating the thing. But you do have a commonality in just forget, or you can't forget. So we do have these uprisings that occur. We'll take Castro. Let's do that. Very, very easy. I could do the same thing with Castro, and obviously, I'm no fan by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
You had useful idiots that helped accomplish the goal of people that funded things, and because of a lack of knowing what was across, the doorway into, after we've done our destruction, this is what people not knowing, you have that question up in the air of what will be. So all those things, well unsaid, the fact of people uprising is a constant throughout history in pockets. And if you want to exempt the American Revolution, you could. If you want to exempt, the Castro thing or whatever, you can do whatever you want. But my point is only that an action of revolution, of uprising, you're going to have useful idiots. You're going to have people that are pulling the pocket strings. You're going to have all these things. The morality of it, is another question. I would always lean towards the side of individualistic freedom. But I'm just making that point. But it was very, very enlightening to see that, and I would expect nothing different than to be protective of the revolution, but not. But not. It's not going against my freaking beliefs by any stretch. Is all I'm saying. I mean, I think I've said way too much because now people know where I stand. But whatever.
Well, I guess my entire point in starting this entire thing, and I keep coming back to it, is shut up and listen. Listen to the other guy. You are not the most important person in the world. Yes, you have your right to your opinion, but you don't have the right to inflict it on others or demand that they conform to it. So instead of screaming, shut up and listen.
Yeah, well, I mean, see, I take issue with shut up and listen because it's a demand.
No, it's not a demand. It's not a demand. It's something that's quick, catchy, and got your attention. There's the whole shh thing is less effective than shut up.
Yeah. But you know what you're saying by doing that?
What?
You're adding so it's almost like you're saying I'm sick of you people. You know what? But
I said don't listen to me. I said that. Don't listen to me.
It's adding fire to the thing because they're not going to listen.
And they should, in my opinion.
Oh, well, I agree.
But I'm not demanding anything because I know it's unreasonable.
Yeah, it's unreasonable to expect that people are going to accept boundaries that we would agree with.
Right.
And that's why we need the balance that we have.
But if it makes one person think, probably not a good idea to go confront that guy, then I'm happy. I'm a non-confrontational person. I really am. I don't like confrontations at all. Doesn't mean I'll back down from one. But I just, I'm just a guy. I just want to get up in the morning, have some coffee, do the stuff I got to do online, and then go out my day. If that means I got to go to the grocery store, let me get my groceries and go home. And I'll be out of the way. You won't have to even worry about me. I can take care of myself. Don't try to insert yourself into a situation where you just don't belong.
Look,
it's none of your business.
In in 1177
Mhm.
BC. 1177 BC. There's a thing called the collapse of the Bronze Age,
Uh-huh.
and this happened so long ago. Why would anybody even care? Well, at that time, Egypt was doing commerce and erecting pyramids, and it was a great civilization. And they did commerce with the Greeks and with many other groups. But then in 1177, roughly thereabouts, you had something that occurred where civilization collapsed
Mhm.
across the board. They went to the Stone Age again, all across the board. And there's the presence of what is called the Sea People, and that they're not sure who exactly they were, the Sea People, but they invaded, disrupted, and all of society, including the Sea People, because there was a huge network of trade throughout the Mediterranean. And once these Sea People attacked, some people say that famine in their lands and catastrophes in their lands contributed, and droughts, and that they went in search of to dominate the societies that had something going. But in that flux, and they're not sure exactly but society, it's called the Bronze Age collapse, it frickin' tanked.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you have nothing until it starts building up again. And this is a very interesting point for historians, because they're looking at it, because it shows the collapse of society from an event that could have been an event of 50 years to 100 years, but it was an event.
Yeah.
It was a change in society. And we all know that subtle changes, I mean, we all see it because that's what we're all fighting for every time there's an election, every time there's, some sort of, we're pulling and tugging, steering that ship in the direction that we hope is the good direction, while the other people are steering it in a direction that we're thinking to ourselves, well, wait a second. Now, why indulge that? Because you need to know who your enemy is. Why indulge it? Because to them, they're justified. Because to them, they're doing it for whatever. I mean, we may not agree, we may not, but there's a reason that they're doing it.
Okay.
Throughout the long lens of history. So to them, so you have to know your enemy,
Okay.
even if it's distasteful. Now, with that said, there have been these things that have occurred in Cuba at a very personal level. I have someone like, I'll just use my grandfather as an example, although I have many stories to tell. He had a small little business. It was a store called the Francia, the France, and they sold textiles, toys, all the above, perfumes and so on, and little necklaces and bracelets.
General store kind of a thing?
It was like a little boutique type store.
Okay.
With fabric sales and whatnot. And he was a Spaniard. And he had come to the island and married my grandmother, and they created and they built this little business. And it wasn't a kingship. It was just a little business. Enterprise. Pay for dinner and the lights and so on. And pocket some money for some vacations. And then a wave swept the country because of injustices that were occurring, in many cases justified, in many cases not. But there was enough of a situation, and then there's the element of jealousy and envy that sweeps people. And there's the people that justify, like we've been talking about, that will justify the use of violence towards others and the use of confiscation of other people's livelihoods. You have all these attitudes that occur. So I'm quite versed in the concept. And beyond that, I could sit and I could spend the whole night on the concept of freedom. So let's be clear. They came, and by they, I mean the people that swept the country and took control, village from village, city to city, removed the current occupants of businesses, homes, and businesses and homes, and installed their own people to manage said businesses in a controlled economy type fashion. They took my grandfather. He never got to go back and open up the safe to acquire certain documents, out with all your merchandise on the shelves that you have to order, just like we would do nowadays. You have to order, hey, I need 100 cases of such and such. Hey, I need some fabric from here.
Yeah.
Left in the store, registers with the money that might have been there collected or not, or whatever, receipts and whatnot. This is very personal, real life thing. Of course, it happened 60 some odd years ago, and they had to walk out the door. But to make things even worse, a man that was a businessman and in his 50s, 60s, never working in the fields, took him and by design placed him on a truck out to the fields to cut sugarcane for X amount of years until they finally were able to exit, losing home, property. And that's just one example of a multitude so let's be real. There's a greater, where obviously you saw a situational thing. Me being a first generation American, for whatever it's worth, with that kind of history, not my forefathers, ancestors didn't leave because of economic reasons, although economic reasons was in the thing. They left because of freedom, the want to be able to direct your journey through life and not be mandated by a state. So there's no way on this earth, maybe on the next, I don't know, that I could dishonor the spirit of freedom by any means. But I have to use my brain within its shell and analyze things and look at the enemy, as distasteful as it is.
Well, yeah.
So I do so. But so that's just my wrapping up of the thing, because to me, that I will fight till the end, and I will have enemies.
It's personal to you.
I will have enemies lining out the door, and I won't care. And you'll have to break my neck and throw me down a gutter. You will have to mess my stuff up, because that's one area that I will fight day and night ad nauseum. I mean, I'm passionate. Let me stop there.
Well, because it's personal to you. You didn't read about it in a history book. It's personal to you. And, I'm in a 100% agreement with you. 100%. But I don't know. The whole thing is the intrusion on that freedom, I guess, was my overriding theme for the night, was that intrusion on that freedom. If we hear about something on the news or we see something in the paper, it doesn't mean as much unless it happens to you. And no, she didn't intrude on my freedom. She insinuated herself into a situation she had no business being in. And that, to me, even though it's a very tiny, tiny step, the minute that becomes acceptable, we have crossed a line. The minute we let some guy, wherever it be, in any Capitol building or whatever, tell me or tell you that you can't have a dinner with your family, we've crossed that line. The minute we allow people to whip us up into such a panic over something that we cannot control, we've stepped across the line. And we're going further and further and further toward, what's the end game here? The separation of people. And I said, I've been saying useful idiots a lot here tonight. Useful to whom? To the people who want instability and unrest. How do you get regime change? Instability and unrest. That's the end game. That's who they're useful to.
So you're saying it's limited?
The people who want instability and unrest for regime change. So the useful idiots are more than happy to follow right along.
Well. So you're saying that it's for the elections coming up and nothing besides.
I'm not saying it's nothing besides, but I'm saying that that is why the flames are being fanned. I mean, stop and think about it. Would any other city allow that to go on for 6 months unchecked every night for 6 months if they didn't somehow agree with what these people were doing? And who are the targets of these people? Federal buildings, places of authority, federal buildings, state buildings, city buildings.
Well, since we've gone into that, and we've said what we said, I'll just say there has been evidence, video, and so on of trucks being rented, payloads being dropped off in different city blocks. Of rocks, a whole assortment of things. So let's just be clear. There is evidence, if one wants to be innocent, of a pre-planned thing where then the useful idiots come. And I would go as far as not even that I have to go as far as, there has been evidence as well, and which you can easily access by searching, that people have been paid to go and protest, let's say.
Well, but the thing that they're forgetting, and I think this would be a good time to wrap up, is an excellent point made by a lovely individual by the name of Linda, who said, and when they're done with the useful idiots, they're the first ones up against the wall. The minute you are no longer useful, you are a liability. So have your little fun with your pitchforks and torches, but remember, the minute the regime is changed, you are no longer of any use. You are yesterday's news. The useful idiots are the first ones up against the wall because you're a danger to them. And on that happy note,
well, this is probably so look, the only people that will be interested are the people that would be interested, and it speaks to them or are curious about said topic, or some will be pleasantly surprised and so on as they travel through the journey of the audio listen of the podcast. I do want to mention that we are and by the way, I do want, by this point, what difference does it make?
Well, I'm just thinking it's your edit, so you're going to have a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah, you always lay these things on me, dude. Now
wait. We do. I'll edit it if you want me to.
I mean, there's a lot there.
I know.
No, I'm not gonna.
We're looking at an hour 43 right now.
I'm honestly, I'm just gonna let it roll when I do the edit. Unless you want to exclude certain things, but I
haven't said anything I'm embarrassed about.
Me neither. Now I'll be honest, the only thing that, and I'm not gonna lie, I'll be honest, because we're amongst friends. The only thing that did, and I know it wasn't meant, but that reaction from Billy, I do, like, in the heart area and right above the stomach, that hurt too, because it's self-perception too. How, oh wait, how could you think that, it's a hurtful thing, because I'm very passionate about that. So I'm being honest that it did sink me in the heart region a little bit. That my ideas, and that's why I wanted to go into the explanation of it, whether it resolved it for others or not. I don't
think you intended to insult the band. I mean,
it's not my intent. My intention is, well, what, we've talked too much. Yeah. My intention is exactly what. Listen to the whole conversation again, and you'll see what my intentions are. So we are sponsored by Harneo Media. That's harneomedia.com. And you can acquire your web store through Steve Nealon. Just check it out at harneomedia.com. By the way, none of what is said during the broadcast is what's the word?
Well, he doesn't support, endorse, or defend anything that we say here. There are opinions. They are not the opinions of anybody we mention, other than Eloy and myself. These are our opinions. Steve is probably sitting back cringing, going, "Oh, thanks, guys," But no, he does not endorse or share any of those opinions.
Yeah, this is probably the most political we've gotten. But I do want to say that we are. Last thing I will say, I do believe that we are all human and the same on many levels. And my greatest belief is the belief of love towards others, even though I fall short greatly, even amongst friends. When I could hold back my tongue, my disposition is to allow for others to do as they so choose in their life, as long as that they don't encroach upon others. That is the spirit of me, or my higher endeavor, which I fall short of. So whether you believe in zombie apocalypse or, very well any other thing, I don't. And by the way, that was kind of derogatory using the zombie apocalypse thing. But I don't. I may not believe what you believe, but I respect your right to believe whatever you believe out there. And I'm not saying that to protect the podcast. I'm just saying that since we've been sincere and expressed these sort of things, I just wanted to add that bit. And if you don't like it, well, screw off.
Pound sand.
Later, folks.
Take care.